The city never slept. Neon lights burned through the fog, and streets were filled with rushing people who never looked at each other. In this place of noise and endless movement, a girl walked alone. Her hood was pulled low, covering her face. Her clothes were old, torn and stained by dust and rain. To the crowd, she looked like another beggar, another forgotten soul blending into the shadows. But she was not what she seemed. Behind the hood, behind the tired eyes and pale skin, she was hiding a truth far greater than anyone could imagine. She was not human at all. She was a princess from a world far away, a world that no one on earth had ever seen. No one knew her secret. She had been living in disguise for many months, moving from street to street, hiding from those who hunted her. At first she thought humans might be kind. She thought perhaps they would see her weakness, her hunger, her loneliness, and offer her even the smallest touch of mercy. But the city gave her nothing. The faces she passed were cold, the voices sharp and unfriendly. Some looked at her with suspicion, others with disgust. When she tried to ask for help, they pushed her away or pretended she did not exist. Each night she found herself wandering with no place to go. She would sleep in alleys or abandoned corners, wrapping her thin arms around her knees to keep warm. Sometimes she cried silently, whispering words from her own language, words that no human would ever understand. She remembered her palace made of crystal and silver, the songs of her people, the laughter of her younger siblings. All of it had been destroyed in one night. Her enemies had stormed the throne, killing without mercy. She had been forced to run, forced to hide, and forced to bury her true self beneath a mask of dirt and rags. But no matter how hard she tried to blend in, she always felt alone. The humans did not know her secret, but they still treated her like she did not belong. She wondered if they sensed something strange about her. Was it her eyes that shone too bright beneath the hood? Was it the way she spoke, careful and broken, as if the words of this planet did not fit right in her mouth? Whatever it was, they saw her as different, and in this city, different was dangerous. That evening, the rain began to fall again. Cold drops soaked her hair and trickled down her cheeks. Her stomach growled loudly, a reminder that she had not eaten for 2 days. She stepped into a small marketplace, hoping to find scraps of food. She moved carefully between the stalls, trying to remain invisible. The smell of roasted meat made her mouth water, but when she reached out for a piece of bread left on a crate, the stall owner noticed her. "Get away," the man shouted, swinging his hand at her as if she were nothing more than a stray animal. His voice was harsh, and the people around turned to look. Some laughed. Others shook their heads in disapproval. The girl froze, her heart racing. For a moment she thought the man might strike her. Quickly she lowered her hood further and stepped back, whispering an apology in a trembling voice. But no one listened. To them she was not worth listening to. The laughter and whispers followed her as she stumbled away. She felt shame burning in her chest. No kindness, no warmth, no single hand stretched out to help. Was this all humanity was? A world of closed doors and hard hearts? She wanted to believe there was more, but every day proved her wrong. Her legs gave out when she reached the end of a dark alley. She sank to the ground, her back against the cold brick wall. The rain dripped from the roof above, splashing into small puddles near her feet. She was tired, weaker than she had ever been. Her body trembled, her breaths came shallow, and her vision blurred. For a moment she thought about letting go. Maybe it would be easier to close her eyes and never wake up. At least the pain would end. But then she heard it. Footsteps. Slow, steady footsteps echoing against the wet pavement. She froze, her heart pounding. Was it a hunter? Had they finally found her? She wanted to move, to run, but her body was too weak. The footsteps came closer and closer until they stopped just a few feet away. The girl raised her head, her hood still hiding her face. In the dim light, she saw the outline of a man. He was young, not dressed in fine clothes, but his presence was different from the others she had met. He did not laugh. He did not scold her. He simply stood there, silent, as if studying her. For the first time in weeks, she felt something stir inside her chest, something she almost forgot existed. Hope. But was he a threat or a savior? She could not know yet. All she knew was that the story of her life was about to change. The young man did not move at first. He only watched her, standing still in the rain, his eyes scanning the fragile figure sitting against the wall. She looked small, weak, almost broken. Most people in the city would have walked past without a second glance. Some would have laughed. Others would have thrown stones. But he did not. Something about her caught his attention and held it firmly. as if the shadows themselves whispered that she was different. He stepped closer. The sound of his boots splashing in the puddles made her tense. Her fingers curled against the wet ground, ready to push herself up if she had to escape. But her body was too weak, her legs trembling from hunger and exhaustion. If he attacked her, she would not survive. Her hood still covered her face, but she could feel his gaze burning through the fabric, studying her with quiet curiosity. "You don't look so good," he said softly. His voice was not sharp like the others she had heard. It carried no hate, no mockery, only concern. The princess lowered her head further, afraid to answer. She had learned silence was safer than words. The less she spoke, the less anyone would notice how strange her voice sounded. But the man did not leave. Instead, he reached into the small bag hanging over his shoulder. From it, he pulled out a half loaf of bread. The smell made her heart ache with hunger. He crouched down and placed it gently in front of her, as if feeding a frightened animal. "Take it," he said. "You need it more than I do." Her stomach screamed for it, but her mind screamed louder. It could be a trap. No one had ever shown her kindness. Why now? Why him? She hesitated, staring at the bread as if it were poison. The man waited patiently, not pushing, not forcing her. His eyes were steady, calm, and oddly kind. Slowly, her trembling hand reached out from under her sleeve. Her fingers snatched the bread, pulling it close to her chest as if it might be stolen away. She bit into it desperately. The taste was simple, rough, but to her it felt like the sweetest meal she had ever eaten. She chewed quickly, afraid it would vanish. The man watched, silent, until she finally slowed down, her breaths easier than before. "See? Not poisoned," he said with a faint smile. Her eyes, hidden in the shadows of her hood, flicked toward him. She wanted to ask why. Why would he give food to a stranger when no one else would even share a glance? But fear sealed her lips. She remained silent, clutching the bread like a treasure. The man sat down on the opposite side of the alley, his back against the wall. He looked tired too, his clothes plain and worn, his boots muddy. He did not look like someone with power or wealth. Perhaps that was why he understood. "People out there," he said, jerking his head toward the busy streets. "They don't see us. Not really. To them, we're invisible." His words cut into her heart. Invisible, that was exactly how she felt. Forgotten, ignored, unwanted. She lowered her gaze, hiding the flicker of emotion in her strange eyes. He continued, his tone quiet, almost as if speaking to himself. "I've been invisible for a long time. Lost my job, lost my home, my family's gone. Sometimes I think this city eats people alive." He let out a dry laugh, shaking his head. "Guess that's why I noticed you. You look like someone the city tried to swallow whole." She listened, her chest tightening. For so long she had carried her pain alone. Now she heard pain in his voice too. A pain that mirrored hers in a way she did not expect. For the first time, she did not feel completely alone. The rain began to ease, leaving only the dripping sound of water sliding off rooftops. The man reached into his bag again and pulled out a small bottle. "Water?" he offered, holding it out. She hesitated, then slowly reached for it. Their fingers brushed for a brief moment. Her skin was colder than his, almost unnaturally so, and she pulled back quickly, hoping he did not notice. He said nothing, only watching as she drank, her throat moving with every swallow. When she finished, she handed the bottle back with trembling hands. Her lips parted slightly as if to speak, but the words stuck. For so long she had believed no one would ever listen. The man studied her carefully. "What's your name?" he asked. Her heart skipped. A name. Her true name could not be spoken. It would reveal everything, her bloodline, her kingdom, her secret. She shook her head quickly, her hood slipping just enough for him to catch a glimpse of her jawline, smooth and different from any human's. He tilted his head but did not press further. "All right." "No name then." "Doesn't matter. You're safe here for now." Safe. The word echoed inside her. Could she really believe it? Or was this just another cruel game the universe played on her? She wanted to trust him, but trust was dangerous. One mistake and her enemies would find her. Yet something deep inside whispered that this man was not like the others. As night settled, the streets outside grew quieter. The man stood, brushing water from his clothes. He looked down at her one last time before turning. "Stay here. I'll check if it's clear. Don't move." Her heart pounded. She wanted to stop him, to ask him not to leave her alone again. But the words never came. She sat frozen, clutching the last piece of bread in her hands, watching his shadow disappear into the fog. And for the first time in her long, lonely exile, the alien princess wondered if she had finally found someone she could trust. But trust had a cost, and soon she would learn how heavy that cost could be. The city looked calm that night, but the calm was a lie. Beneath the bright lights and the endless noise, something dark moved through the alleys. They were not human. They wore human clothes, human faces, but their eyes glowed faintly when the moonlight touched them. They were hunters, and their only mission was clear: find the missing princess before she vanished forever. The princess did not know how close they were. She sat in the alley, hugging her knees, the last crumbs of bread still clutched in her hands. Her body felt warmer now, her stomach no longer screaming with pain, but her heart was restless. Every sound of footsteps made her stiffen. Every passing shadow made her wonder if her enemies had finally caught up to her. The young man returned after a while. He carried a small bag with him, filled with scraps of food and an old blanket. "Told you not to move," he said, placing the bag beside her. His tone was firm, but his eyes softened when he saw how she trembled. "Here, eat a little more, and this will keep you warm." She stared at the blanket in disbelief. No one had ever given her such a gift. Slowly, she pulled it around her shoulders, the rough fabric scratching against her skin, yet it felt like the softest silk she had ever touched. For the first time in months, warmth wrapped around her. She wanted to thank him, but again the words died in her throat. The man sat beside her, chewing on a piece of bread himself. "Strange thing, isn't it?" he said. "How people can walk right past someone and pretend they don't exist. But I couldn't do it. I saw you and I knew. If I left, you might not make it through the night." His words struck her heart like a blade and a balm at the same time. No one had ever cared. No one had ever noticed. Why him? Why now? But before she could even process the strange warmth in her chest, a sound made her freeze. Footsteps again. Not like his, he was heavy, human, rough. These steps were light, controlled, too precise for ordinary people. She tensed under her blanket, eyes darting to the alley mouth. In the distance, she saw 3 figures moving slowly, scanning every corner with sharp predator-like gazes. Their eyes glowed faintly in the darkness. She knew them, hunters. Her breath caught. Her body screamed to run, but her legs would not obey. The man noticed her fear and followed her gaze. At first he thought they were just men searching for trouble. But the way their eyes gleamed, the way their movements looked unnatural, it chilled him to the bone. "Stay quiet," he whispered. He shifted, placing himself between her and the approaching figures. The hunters paused at the entrance of the alley. Their leader raised his head, sniffing the damp air like an animal. His lips curled into a cold smile. "She's close," he muttered, his voice low but sharp. "I can smell her blood." The princess's heart nearly stopped. They were talking about her. They always found her in the end. No disguise, no hood, no dirt on her face could truly hide who she was. The man's hand tightened into a fist. He didn't understand everything, but he understood enough. These men were after the girl behind him. And he knew she was too weak to escape. For reasons he could not explain, he could not let them take her. The hunters stepped forward, their eyes glowing brighter now, no longer caring to hide. The leader tilted his head. "Human," he said, addressing the man. "Step aside. The girl is ours." The man shook his head slowly. Fear raced through him, but something stronger held him in place. "She's not yours," he said firmly. The hunters laughed, a sound like broken glass. "Do you know what she is?" The leader hissed. "She is no friend of your kind. She is nothing but a burden. Move, or die with her." The princess's breath trembled. She wanted to tell him to run. She wanted to scream that he should not risk his life for her. But no sound came. She could only watch as he stood tall in front of her, a single human against creatures far stronger. The man clenched his jaw. His whole body was shaking, but his voice did not break. "If you want her," he said, "you'll have to go through me." For a moment, silence filled the alley. Then the hunters moved, fast, too fast for human eyes. The man barely had time to react. He grabbed a broken pipe from the ground, swinging it wildly. Sparks flew as it clashed against one of the hunter's claws. Pain ripped through his arm, but he did not fall. The princess's eyes widened. She had never seen such defiance. No one had ever risked anything for her. Yet this human, who did not even know her name, stood in front of her as if she was worth everything. The hunters circled him, laughing, confident he would not last long. But the human refused to step aside. Blow after blow he fought, bleeding, stumbling, but never moving from his place between them and her. The princess's chest ached. She could no longer sit still. Her secret, her disguise, none of it mattered anymore. She rose slowly, the blanket slipping from her shoulders. Her hood fell back, revealing her glowing eyes, her alien mark. The hunters froze, their grins widening. "There she is," the leader hissed. The lost princess. The man turned his head just enough to see her true face for the first time. His eyes widened, not in fear but in shock and awe. He finally understood why they wanted her. But instead of running, instead of abandoning her, his voice came steady, fierce. "You're safe with me." And with those words, the night grew more dangerous than ever. The alley was no longer silent. The clash of metal against claws, the hiss of rain, and the growls of the hunters filled the night. The human fought with everything he had, swinging the broken pipe like a sword, blocking, striking, stumbling, but never falling. His body ached, his arms burned, but his mind shouted one truth. He could not let them take her. Behind him, the princess trembled. Her hood had slipped away, her glowing eyes exposed. For the first time, someone outside her people had seen her true face. She expected fear, disgust, or betrayal. But when the man looked at her, there was none. His shock was real, but his gaze carried no hate. Only determination. The hunters noticed too. Their leader smirked, his sharp teeth glinting in the dim light. "At last," he whispered, his voice heavy with triumph. "The runaway princess. Do you know how long we've hunted you, child? How many worlds we crossed to drag you back?" Her body shook, but not from fear alone. Memories burned in her chest. Her palace set on fire, her family's screams, her desperate escape. She clenched her fists, fighting back tears. She had promised herself never to reveal her true form. Disguise was survival. But now, with this human bleeding for her, something inside her broke. She could not keep hiding. The man raised his pipe again, but his legs wobbled. One hunter struck him across the shoulder, sending him crashing into the wall. Blood dripped from his lip as he struggled to stand. The princess's heart nearly burst. She stepped forward, her voice sharp, her alien tongue slipping through for the first time in months. "Stop," she cried, her words echoing with power. The hunters froze for a brief moment, startled by the sound of her royal command. Their eyes narrowed, recognizing the voice that once gave orders to armies. The leader chuckled darkly. "There you are," he said, still clinging to that royal pride. "But you're alone now, princess. Your throne is gone. No one will save you." The human coughed, forcing himself to his feet. He gripped the pipe tighter even though his arms shook. "She's not alone," he said, his voice raw but steady. The princess turned to him, stunned. No one had ever spoken those words for her before. She wanted to believe them, but fear whispered that he would die because of her. Her disguise had protected him too, but now the mask was gone. The hunters would never let either of them live. The leader lunged. The man swung desperately, but the force of the strike sent the pipe flying from his hands. He fell hard against the ground, gasping for breath. The hunter stood over him, claws ready to strike the final blow. "No!" the princess screamed. Without thinking, she stepped forward, placing herself between the man and the hunter's claws. Her eyes burned with light, brighter than ever. The markings on her skin glowed faintly beneath the rain. The air itself seemed to vibrate with her energy. The hunters stepped back, surprised by the sudden burst of power. They had chased her for so long, but they had never seen her fight back. The man stared up at her, his mouth slightly open. Her true form was no longer hidden. She was taller now, her posture straight, her presence commanding. Her alien beauty glowed even through the dirt and rain. For a moment he forgot his pain, lost in awe. She was not just a weak girl on the streets. She was something far greater. The princess raised her hand, and with a flicker of energy, a wave of force knocked the hunters back a few steps. They snarled, regrouping quickly. "So the princess still has some power," the leader growled. "Good. That will make your capture all the sweeter." The human forced himself to his feet again, limping to her side. "You don't have to do this alone," he said, his voice firm even through the pain. She looked at him, her glowing eyes meeting his tired human ones. No one had ever stood beside her. No one had ever faced death for her sake. Something inside her shifted. She no longer saw him as just a stranger. He was the first spark of hope she had felt since her world burned. "Then we stand together," she whispered. The hunters roared and charged. The alley became chaos, claws, fists, and bursts of alien light colliding under the rain. The man fought with whatever strength he had left, using fists, elbows, anything to keep them away. The princess unleashed controlled bursts of her hidden power, every strike filled with the pain of her past and the will to survive. The hunters were stronger, but they had not expected resistance. For every strike they gave, the humans stood again. For every time they tried to corner her, the princess pushed them back. Together, weak and broken though they seemed, they fought like they had nothing left to lose. Finally, with one last burst of energy, the princess forced the hunters back out of the alley. They hissed, glaring at her with burning hatred. The leader wiped blood from his lip and sneered. "This is not over, princess. We will take you, and your little pet human too." They vanished into the shadows, leaving only the sound of dripping water behind. The man collapsed against the wall, breathing hard, his body shaking from exhaustion. The princess knelt beside him, her hands hovering over his wounds. He looked at her again, her glowing eyes inches from his face. "You're not human," he whispered. Her throat tightened. This was the moment she always feared, the moment humans would turn away, afraid or disgusted. She lowered her gaze, unable to meet his eyes. "No," she whispered softly. "I'm not." Silence stretched between them. Then, with surprising gentleness, he placed a hand on hers. "Doesn't matter," he said. "You're safe with me." Her breath caught. No fear, no hate, only those same steady eyes. For the first time since she lost her world, the princess felt something she thought she would never feel again. The night stretched long after the hunters disappeared. The rain slowed to a thin drizzle, leaving the city damp and heavy with silence. The man leaned against the wall, his chest rising and falling with each breath. He was weak, bruised, and bleeding, but his eyes never left the girl beside him. She was no longer hiding. Her hood lay crumpled on the ground, and her glowing eyes shone like tiny stars in the dark alley. Her alien markings pulsed faintly on her skin, proof of a power she had tried to bury. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The man was waiting for her to explain, and the princess was gathering the courage to share the truth she had carried alone for so long. Finally, she lowered her head, her voice soft but steady. "You were not supposed to see me like this," she whispered. "No human was ever supposed to know." The man tilted his head, wincing from pain but refusing to look away. "Then why now?" he asked. Her hands trembled as she pulled the blanket closer around her shoulders. She had lied and hidden for months, but now there was no point. He had fought for her, bled for her, and even after seeing her true form, he had not left. He deserved to know. "I am not just different," she said quietly. Was a princess. My world was called Ilvaris, a place of light, music, and peace. My family ruled for generations. We believed the stars themselves had blessed us." Her voice broke slightly, memory stabbing her heart. "But peace never lasts. There were those who envied us, those who wanted power. One night they came. Soldiers, assassins, traitors. They burned my home. They killed my family. I was forced to run." Her glowing eyes filled with tears, but she did not let them fall. The man listened silently, his expression grave. He had expected something strange, but not this. She was not just a girl hiding in rags. She was royalty, a survivor of a destroyed kingdom. "The hunters," she continued, her voice shaking now. "They served the usurper. They chased me across the stars. They want to capture me, to drag me back as a trophy, proof that the true bloodline is broken." She paused, her fingers gripping the blanket tighter. "I disguised myself when I reached this planet. I thought I could blend in. I thought maybe humans would be kind. But everywhere I went, I found only coldness. They saw me as worthless even when they did not know the truth." Her words cut through the air like knives. The man's chest tightened. He remembered how he had seen her in the alley, fragile, starving, ignored by all. He realized now that her silence, her fear, her strange eyes were not just signs of poverty. They were scars of exile. She lowered her gaze. "I told myself kindness does not exist, that no one would ever risk anything for me. Until you." The man blinked, surprised. He had not thought about it deeply when he gave her bread, when he shielded her from the hunters. He had simply acted because it felt right, because leaving her alone felt wrong. Now hearing her say it, he realized what his actions meant to her. "You're not worthless," he said firmly. "I don't care what you are or where you came from. You deserve to live. You deserve better than this." Her throat tightened. She wanted to believe his words, but years of running, months of rejection weighed heavy on her heart. "But don't you see?" she whispered. "If you stay near me, you will die. The hunters will come again. They will never stop. They will kill you just to hurt me." The man leaned forward despite his pain, his voice steady. "Then let them come. I won't let them take you." For a moment, silence filled the alley. The princess looked at him, her glowing eyes wide with disbelief. No one had ever chosen to stand with her. Not even her own people had been able to save her. Yet this human, broken and tired, stood firm. The weight of her secrets pressed heavy on her, but at the same time, a new strength began to rise. Maybe it was his courage, maybe his stubbornness, but she felt something she had not felt since her world burned. Hope. She leaned back against the wall, closing her eyes. "My family is gone. My throne is gone. But the hunters are not finished. They will use me to crush what remains of my people. I cannot let that happen. Even if I have nothing left, I cannot let them win." The man nodded slowly. "Then we fight." She opened her eyes, startled. "We?" "Yes," he said simply. "You're not alone anymore. Not if you don't want to be." Her chest ached, but this time it was not from fear. It was from the strange warmth spreading inside her. She had carried her pain alone for so long, buried under disguises and silence. Now for the first time she shared it with someone. And he did not run. The night grew colder, but neither of them moved. The hunters would return. The danger was far from over. But as the human leaned back beside her, and the alien princess finally breathed without the weight of lies, one truth became clear. Her fallen throne no longer defined her. Her broken crown no longer chained her. What mattered now was survival, and for the first time she believed she had a chance, because one human had proven her wrong. The city never truly slept. Even deep into the night, lights flickered and distant voices echoed. But in the forgotten alley where the human and the alien princess sat, silence reigned. They had shared food, stories, and secrets. For a brief moment it felt like the world outside had stopped, but danger never stopped. Far away in the shadows of the city, the hunters gathered again. Their leader's face twisted with anger. "She revealed herself," he growled. "And she has a protector now." His eyes glowed like embers. "We will use that against her. The girl will not run if the human suffers. Tomorrow she will choose and she will lose." By dawn, the man woke with pain in his ribs but determination in his heart. The princess was already awake, watching the horizon from the mouth of the alley. Her eyes glowed faintly in the soft morning light, but her face was troubled. She had not slept. She had been thinking, remembering every warning, every night she spent running, every face of those who had betrayed her. And now there was him, she whispered softly, almost to herself. "Why do you stay?" The man rubbed his sore shoulder, wincing. "Because leaving you isn't an option. You needed help." "That's enough for me." Her chest tightened. It sounded so simple when he said it, yet she knew it was not simple at all. Staying near her meant danger, pain, and likely death. She turned her glowing eyes toward him. "If you stay with me, they will find you too. They will hurt you just to make me surrender." He met her gaze steadily. "Then let them try." She wanted to argue, but her words broke apart before they left her lips. For once in her life, someone had chosen her, not because of her title, not because of her power, but because he cared. That terrified her more than the hunters. The day dragged on quietly, but unease never left her. Every passing figure on the street felt like a spy. Every noise sounded like danger approaching. By evening, her fears came true. They struck fast. The hunters appeared like shadows crawling out of the ground, surrounding the alley before either of them could escape. The man pushed the princess behind him instinctively, his fists clenched though he had no real weapon. The leader sneered, his voice low and cruel. "You should have kept running, princess. Instead, you found yourself a pet human." How touching. His eyes flicked to the man, sharp as blades. "He bleeds for you, doesn't he? Then let him bleed more." Before the princess could react, two hunters grabbed the man. He struggled, kicking and shouting, but their strength was overwhelming. They slammed him against the wall, holding him tight. Blood trickled from his lip as he spat in their direction, refusing to give in. The princess's heart pounded, her body trembling. "Stop, leave him," she cried, stepping forward. The leader's smirk widened. "Ah, so you care. Good, that makes this easy." He drew a sharp blade, its edge glimmering under the dim light. "Here is your choice, princess. Come with us quietly and we let him live. Refuse, and watch him die." The world seemed to freeze. Her breath caught in her throat. For months she had run, hiding behind disguises, protecting only herself. Now the weight of another life was in her hands. If she surrendered, the hunters would drag her across the stars, parading her as proof of her kingdom's defeat. If she refused, the human, the one person who had ever shown her kindness, would be killed in front of her eyes. The man shouted through clenched teeth. "Don't do it. Don't give yourself up for me." His voice was raw, desperate.
Run! Live!
"Don't waste everything you've survived for me." Tears blurred her vision. He was willing to die for her, but how could she let him? He had given her hope, food, warmth, life itself when she was ready to give up. She had believed no human could ever care. But he did. And now, because of her, he was suffering. Her hands clenched, glowing faintly with the power she had tried to hide. She stepped forward, her voice shaking. "I will not choose between us," the hunters laughed. "You have no power here. You are weak, broken. You will surrender." Her eyes burned brighter. No. For the first time in months, she allowed her full strength to rise. Her markings glowed across her skin, light spilling into the alley like fire. The air trembled and the hunters stumbled back in shock. The leader hissed in rage. So the princess finally remembers who she is. The man struggled in their grip, his eyes wide as he watched her. She looked like a figure from legend, no longer a girl in rags but a queen reborn. She raised her hand and a burst of energy blasted the hunters away from him. They crashed into the walls, snarling as smoke rose from their burned skin. The man fell to the ground, gasping for breath but alive. The princess stood tall, her voice sharp and strong. "You will not take him. You will not take me. I am not your prisoner." The hunters regrouped, but their grins had vanished. They had underestimated her, and now they knew it. The leader glared, his voice dripping with hate. "This is not the end. We will return, and next time both of you will fall." They vanished into the shadows as quickly as they had appeared, leaving silence once again. The princess dropped to her knees beside the man, her body trembling from the power she had unleashed. He looked up at her, his eyes filled with awe. "You saved me," he whispered. She touched his face gently, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. "No," she said softly. "You saved me first, and I will never let them take you." In that moment, the choice was made. She would no longer run alone. She would fight, not just for herself, not just for her fallen throne, but for the one human who proved that kindness could still exist in a cruel world. The night was heavy after the hunters vanished. The city was still alive with distant noise, but in that quiet alley the world felt smaller, almost fragile. The princess knelt beside the human, her glowing eyes dimming as exhaustion pulled at her. Her body shook from the power she had unleashed. She had never fought like that since fleeing her world. For years she had hidden her strength, buried her true self under dirt and rags, but tonight, because of him, she had remembered who she was. The man leaned against the wall, blood still on his lip, his breath sharp and uneven. Yet his eyes never left her. He had seen her disguise crumble, her true form blaze like fire, her power shake the very air. She was no longer a lost beggar girl. She was something far greater, and yet to him, she was still the same fragile soul who had needed bread and warmth. "You're incredible," he whispered hoarsely. Her chest tightened. She had been called many things before, royal, powerful, untouchable, but never incredible in this way. Never with such honesty. She lowered her gaze. "I was afraid," she admitted. "Afraid that if you saw me, you would hate me like the others." He shook his head slowly, forcing a weak smile. "I don't hate you. I never will." The silence that followed was not heavy this time. It was soft, like the space between breaths. For the first time, the princess felt she was not only surviving, she was living, but the peace did not last. Both of them knew the hunters would return. They were not defeated, only delayed. The leader's words echoed in her mind. "Next time, both of you will fall." She shivered, gripping the blanket tighter around her shoulders. The man noticed. Despite his pain, he sat straighter. "We can't stay here," he said. "They'll keep coming," she nodded slowly. "They will never stop. Not until I am dead or captured." "Then we fight them," he said simply. Her glowing eyes flicked to him in shock. "We? You are only human. You have no power, no army. Why would you fight a war that isn't yours?" He met her gaze without hesitation. "Because you're not alone anymore. And maybe I'm only human, but I won't stand by while they try to break you. If you fall, I fall with you. That's my choice." Her breath caught. His words lit a fire inside her chest. a fire she thought had died when her kingdom burned. He had no throne, no crown, no soldiers behind him, only stubborn courage. Yet that courage felt stronger than all the armies she had lost. The days that followed blurred together. The hunters stalked them, ambushing them in dark corners, waiting in the shadows. But each time the princess and the human stood together, she used her power, fierce and brilliant, while he fought with grit, refusing to back down. They were mismatched, fragile against overwhelming force, but together they were unstoppable. Whispers began to spread in the city. At first it was only rumors. Talk of strange lights in the alleys, of shadowy figures defeated by a girl with glowing eyes. Then the whispers grew louder. People spoke of a princess not of this world and the human who stood beside her. Some laughed, others feared, but some began to hope. One night, after another narrow escape, the princess and the man sat by a quiet rooftop. The stars stretched above them, cold and endless. She looked up, her eyes shimmering with memory. "My people believed the stars listened," she said softly. "That they carried our voices when no one else could hear." He followed her gaze. "Then speak," he said. "Tell them you're still here." Her throat tightened. She closed her eyes, whispering words in her own language. A prayer she thought she would never speak again. When she opened her eyes, tears shone faintly on her cheeks. "Maybe they will hear," she said. "But even if they don't—" "You did," the man smiled faintly. "That's enough." And in that quiet moment she realized something powerful. A throne could be lost, a kingdom could burn, but kindness could survive. His simple act of sharing bread, of refusing to walk away, had changed everything. It had pulled her from despair, had given her courage, had reminded her of her worth. And now that kindness burned brighter than any crown. The hunters would return, she knew. They would come with more numbers, more weapons, more fury. But they would not win, because she was no longer running alone. The human reached for her hand, his grip rough and warm. "No matter what comes," he said, "we face it together." She squeezed his hand, her glowing eyes shining with fierce light. "Together," she whispered. The night stretched on, but the fear that once crushed her chest was gone. She was still hunted, still exiled, still a princess without a throne. But none of that mattered anymore, because she had found something stronger than power, stronger than fear, stronger even than bloodlines. She had found one human who proved her wrong, and in the end, that kindness would change worlds.